demon-slaying swordsman. Can you imagine if fashion caught on in biblical times? Demon Slayer, or Kimetsu no Yaiba, for those who want to spin Japanese, is undoubtedly a phenomenon. Impeccable animation, charismatic characters, and terrifying villains. The anime not only elicits fear and laughter from those who watch it, but also important lessons. And what would be in this world? Let's analyze Mugen Train, the anime arc that was adapted for film in 2020 and also entered the regular episodes of the second season, so let's get on board. The train is already leaving. With millions of fans and breaking records in manga sales, Demon Slayer went further. In 2020, even in the midst of a pandemic, he broke cinema records with the film, achieving the highest box office in the world that year. What is this captivating story that made Mugen Train such a success? We'll get there. Let's just quickly contextualize the anime for those who don't follow it. Kimetsu no Yaiba tells the story of Tanjiro Kamado, a simple and humble boy who suffers the great trauma of seeing his family killed by an Oni. Oni are people transformed into demons who feed on humans or transform them into Oni too, as is the case with her sister Nezuko, the only survivor of the massacre. However, surprisingly, she acquires exceptional habits for an Oni, protecting her brother and not attacking other humans, but recovering her strength through periods of hibernation. While Tanjiro also protects her, carrying his sister in a box so that she does not have contact with the sun, which is the Oni's weakness. His mission now is to look for a cure for Nezuko and become a demon hunter. This quest guides the entire first season of the anime, as other friends join him, such as the fearful Zenitsu and the impulsive Inosuke. Real and voluntary love between brothers, even in such adverse circumstances, is something amazing and human. He is the antithesis of Inmu, who, unlike the protagonists, forced other Oni under threat to live with him as a make-believe family, wanting to come with the fake ones just to fill a family need, mainly due to the trauma of having been rejected by his parents when he started to become an Oni. Love and wounds in family relationships are a central theme in the anime and will also be developed in Mugen Train. Tanjiro and Nezuko's relationship also makes us reflect on the sacrifices and burdens that every relationship demands, the things we have to leave behind in order to maintain ties with those we love and, at the same time, the baggage we will need to carry with the people with whom we decided to walk. We all have to deny something in ourselves, we all have to tolerate something from the other. Love is this constant dynamic between renunciation, donation, and embrace. It is in these acts that we also see the character of the one who is love itself, by giving up his glory and carrying us in his embrace, which will require us to also deny ourselves, give ourselves for his name and embrace his commandments. Entering Mugen Train, Tanjiro and his friends, along with his sister, are tasked with investigating the murders and disappearances that have been happening on the Infinite Train line, which gives the arc its name. They must join Rengoku, the experienced Hashira known as Pillar of Flames, who will also be on this mission to help them. The charismatic Kaijuro Rengoku is one of the most optimistic and confident characters there is. While talking to Tanjiro, his smile never leaves his face, his head never tilts and his eyes are always facing forward, just like the train they're on, which aims in a single direction and nothing stops him. Rengoku is determined and is eating lunch non-stop, with repeated cries of delicious, expressing the way he sees the world, enjoying each experience as if it were his last. However, all of Hashira's firm and cheerful stance hides an adolescence of repression and negativity from his father, which we will see later. Once inside the train, the conductor goes through each passenger, punching out their tickets. Something strange happens from Tanjiro's perspective, because when his ticket is punched, the train lights go out and he feels a very bad feeling. Onis appear next, but are soon defeated by Rengoku. Everything seemed to have ended well and the mission was successfully completed quickly. It turns out that, from the moment the tickets were punched, the passengers had actually fallen into a deep sleep under the spell of the true villain who was in control of the train, the powerful Oni Inmu. That fight had been nothing more than a dream to give the feeling of a completed task. The heroes were sleeping, and Inmu made people fall into a deep sleep while he controlled their dreams. The plan was this: give the characters the best dreams so that they would fall more and more into a deep sleep without waking up. Inmu then made use of children. They were tied to the warriors, which magically made them enter their subconscious. Within the subconscious, they would destroy the core of the spirit, the heart of the soul that is there, and kill the heroes without them even realizing it or even thinking about raising the sword. All of this reveals to us that our dreams are precious and direct our lives, as well as our hearts. In biblical language, the heart is the driving force of our will, our conscience, our desires. Handing over what is so precious through our bonds and relationships to someone malicious or being robbed of it would be very tragic. Enmu mocks the fragility of the human heart, and in some ways he is correct. This is why the scriptures advise, in Proverbs 4 verse 23, above everything that should be guarded, guard your heart, for from it come the sources of life. While we see a weakness, there is also a life-giving potential if we are connected to the one who is the source of life itself. If the need to guard this, as the scripture says, is because there are also chances of being corrupted there, not always by an external force, but at the first sign of spiritual drowsiness, often by our own flesh, our own deceptive desires and dreams. Drowned in ourselves, anesthetized within ourself, we will be easily manipulated. Now, as children of light, we are of the day. Let us be awake, attentive and sober, as Paul says in this context in the letter of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. Let us protect ourselves with the breastplate of faith and love and guard our minds with the helmet of the hope of salvation. Hope of salvation is the day when our hearts will be fully satisfied. Tanjiro is transported in his dream to the location of his old house. His brothers are walking in the snow. Even though he initially finds it strange, the longing and the feeling that it was so real make him run to hug them while he cries compulsively. At home with the rest of the brothers and family, it is as if life had gone on normally. There was never a brutal murder of the family, there was never any danger. Tanjiro was always there for them, and peace reigns and convinces him to accept that reality, once again having the presence, care, and love of his family. He comes to think that maybe the past was a nightmare and that was reality. The dreams of friends Zenitsu and Inosuke are more comic relief for the arc. The dream created for Rengoku has a strong dramatic appeal. Unlike Tanjiro, who in his dream once again experiences an environment of family love common to him, what was common to the Pillar of Flames was the presence of an indifferent, abusive, and bitter father. This part was not transformed into his dream. Rengoku's father was a Hashira, but due to alcoholism he gave up everything and became a frustrated man who takes out his frustrations on his children, carrying an accumulation of disappointments in the carriages of his life and throwing this onto those who will live after him. On the other hand, the happiness of Rengoku's dream is to be able to hug his younger brother, who he admires so much, but is held back by his father's abuse. Embodying his hopeful stance and always looking ahead, his concern is with his brother's future and what he could still become, and not with his father's past decisions that led him to that condition. Rengoku loves his father, this becomes clear at the end of the film, but in practical and urgent terms, what could really be different is his brother's future, which is still under construction. Handing over what is so precious through our bonds and relationships to someone malicious or being robbed of it would be very tragic. Enmu mocks the fragility of the human heart, and in some ways he is correct. This is why the scriptures advise, in Proverbs 4 verse 23, above everything that should be guarded, guard your heart, for from it come the sources of life. While we see a weakness, there is also a life-giving potential if we are connected to the one who is the source of life itself. If the need to guard this, as the scripture says, is because there are also chances of being corrupted there, not always by an external force, but at the first sign of spiritual drowsiness, often by our own flesh, our own deceptive desires and dreams. Drowned in ourselves, anesthetized within ourself, we will be easily manipulated. Now, as children of light, we are of the day. Let us be awake, attentive and sober, as Paul says in this context in the letter of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. Let us protect ourselves with the breastplate of faith and love and guard our minds with the helmet of the hope of salvation. Hope of salvation is the day when our hearts will be fully satisfied. While Enmu, on top of the train, sarcastically celebrates how happy it is to die while you're dreaming a good dream, the children who were tied to the heroes begin to destroy each of their spirits. The scenario changes, because at that moment one of the bonds is destroyed, which causes Nezuko to awaken. She, who was with her brother in a box he was carrying, gets up and, with a kick, breaks the chain that connects one of the children. This causes Tanjiro to wake up. He also tries to wake up his friends. Inosuke wakes up quickly, but Zenitsu, even though he sleeps, fights surprisingly hard to defend Nezuko. Rengoku, even asleep, contains the attacks in his subconscious and his willpower begins to give way so he can wake up. The villain then shows himself directly. The battle changes focus because Enmu had merged with the train, whose body is the tracks and carriages and the passengers are like the food in the stomach. Enmu plays illusory dreams on the heroes, who wake up and fall asleep all the time. Tanjiro then needs to have mental control and willpower to not give in to the temptation of falling asleep and continue his mission, attacking the train tracks and trying to cut Enmu's neck. The scenario is difficult, the adrenaline is constant and the battles are visually incredible. It's the action and beauty of Kimetsu no Yaiba's animation that captivates fans so much, but let's stop at one point. There is a very strong biblical teaching for that moment. Amidst the constant attempt to make Tanjiro fall asleep to make him vulnerable, he needs to take a stance of resisting temptations, the kind that James' letter talks about in the first chapter, of standing firm, knowing that this will produce perseverance. As the train runs and Tanjiro remains focused, he is thrown within himself and always seeks to awaken. Paul, in the letter to the Philippians, in chapter 3, says that forgetting the things that are behind, we must move forward to those that are ahead, as if running after a heavenly prize, because Christ has overtaken us. This is what Tanjiro teaches us when the villain tries to make him give up and become trapped in a fantasy world, and he needs to overcome this temptation. Not only does he resist the temptation of sleep, but he runs with all his might into combat, always forward, with his eyes on the mission of saving the people in the carriages. When Enmu is defeated, Akaza appears, an Oni of the highest level, who not only fights, but loves to fight. He then challenges Hashira Rengoku, who, standing firm as always, does not waver. The fight between the two is dizzying, and the big issue is that at a certain point Akaza invites Rengoku to become an Oni too, claiming that his power as a human is a fraction of what it could be. This is a moment of spiritual tension because while Rengoku firmly rejects Akaza's invitation, inside he reflects on his life as a human, and even though his father had lost everything, he never stopped being a man. In Akaza's case, he became an Oni because he wanted to be stronger, but it cost him his humanity, conscience, and human affections. The power he gained didn't pay off. It's like in Eden, where Adam and Eve wanted to be more than they were, and that cost them more than they wanted to pay. Rengoku understands that his strength comes from being alive, loving life and moving forward, and his way of fighting is not by becoming stronger, but by protecting those he loves. This is what defines it. The fight comes to an end with Rengoku seriously injured. Tanjiro, even tired, makes a Herculean effort to catch up with the villain who is fleeing with the dawn, and makes clear Rengoku's victory over Akaza, saying that he is not a winner, but a loser, that fear of the sun and his escape show the weakness he wanted to hide. Rengoku dies, but his attitude in life and his love for those around him continue to inspire Tanjiro and his other friends. Thus, Kimetsu no Yaiba goes beyond epic battles and stunning animations. He teaches us about the resilience of the human soul, the importance of relationships, and how in the midst of difficulties it is possible to find strength in ourselves and in the bonds we build. It's a reminder that no matter how dark the night, there is always hope in the morning. If you like the content and want to help us continue, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment or suggestion about a book, film, series, anime that you want to see analyzed on the channel.